What's up, y'all? You know what time it is? It's about to be that time.
Damn, son, where'd you find this?
I'm sorry, I can't read what you wrote on this buck slip. You got the handwriting of a 15-year-old.
15-year-old. Marry me.
Savage.
And we're back. One Piece 1097 is out, and with it comes a number of channel Ws. If I'm not mistaken, we called pretty much all of the plot beats in this particular chapter, but that was because this is a setup chapter. It was a pickup chapter. These are all things that Oda owed us. A lot of the stuff that was here were things that we have been told previously or hinted at, but were never shown. So leading up to what will eventually be the tragic death of this particular flashback, because like the Scream movies, you have rules, and every Oda flashback has to have a tragic death character. That's going to be Ginny. We've been saying that, and it is being set up. Yes, very much so. But one of the more notable things here is that Dragon has finally been revealed to have at one point been a Marine. We have been a champion of that idea for many years.
Another one.
And Oda has finally given it up and revealed it. It makes sense because Garp has to have had at least one person that followed in the footsteps the way that he wanted, but just like everybody else, defected. Kuzan is probably the epitome of what Garp always wanted out of a son, but he too has also defected. And even in that defection, it's still so ingrained in everything that Garp is about. It's Garp that doesn't realize that he's a part of an organization that'll never give the sense of freedom that he actually is yearning for, which is why I really hope that Garp too is also trying to undermine the government. At the end of the chapter, we are told that Ginny has been captured, which will lead us into the events of 1098. Who is responsible for this capture? Who is the silhouetted figure at the end before we go to Baltigo? Based on the relationships between all of the characters involved, the key character that I'm leaning most towards is Sakazuki. Akainu has a vendetta against Dragon, right? He is always referring to Luffy as Dragon's son, implying that they had some sort of tumultuous relationship back in the day. Were they Marines at the same time? This is why I wanted both of them, Dragon and Sakazuki, to be at God Valley, because then both of them would be able to take something from this genocide. It would be a wonderful catapult for Dragon to start the Freedom Fighters and later the Revolutionary Army, and it would be a wonderful catapult for Sakazuki to decide, hey, I'm not going to let all of these archaeologists on this boat on Ohara survive, because one of them could be any of the pirates that got away from God Valley and went on to murder people. Now I'm curious of the eventual Dragon flashback. What did he see if it wasn't God Valley? And fun fact, in the big spread with the Revolutionary Army, it looks like you can see a younger Karasu, back when he still had hair. He's still got something covering his mouth, but that's probably Karasu. Sakazuki apparently joined the Marines at 23. We'll see if Oda wants to retcon that. But Sakazuki has been tied to both Kuma recently and Bonnie right before the time skip in chapter 595, 596, around there when Bonnie got captured by Blackbeard. Then Sakazuki personally came to get Bonnie, and he has some very interesting dialogue with her. A shiver goes down his spine knowing that she got free. What does this actually mean for their relationship, especially if Sakazuki knew Ginny and maybe is responsible for the death of Ginny? Beyond all of that, there are a couple of other characters that really could pop up here. We're going to get into that. We're going to get into the big question of where is Bonnie? We're going to talk about the wonderfully wholesome love story between Kuma and Ginny, as well as what island is Ginny on, because I do have an idea, even if it is a tinfoil idea, because there are some other characters that we have to service in this flashback as well, and I've got an interesting way of tying it all together. But first, like, comment, subscribe if you are feeling the vibe. Let's go. The The highlight of this chapter was not the plot. Most of those beats were to be expected. What took center stage were the character beats, particularly from Ginny. The chapter was named after her, and she took center stage. The way she defended Kuma from all of the townspeople in Sorbet every Sunday from taking advantage of him, while he goes and commits nothing happened for them every week. Her crying because of the suffering that she knows that he's going through for all of the people. The way they'll never understand what he's doing for them. Her just acts of service, her acts of love throughout the chapter did not go unnoticed and were very mature for One Piece. We don't usually get love stories in this particular manga, so this just goes to show Oda's growth not only as a writer, but a person. Oda introduced us at the beginning of this chapter to Pastor Kuma, the man who is carrying a Bible everywhere he goes, was of course a clergyman like his father before him. Now, unlike his father, did he actually take a vow of celibacy? That's kind of a question that we have to discuss here. What is the implication? Because we do not see Bonnie in this chapter. So is it implied? Is there a B-side to all of this that we're not seeing that may get filled in the next chapter? Right, we need to understand where Bonnie fits into all of this. In an SBS, we were told that she was 22 pre-time skip, 24 post-time skip, but based on looks only. So it's not something that we can actually judge. Oda wrote that just in case he wanted to retcon Bonnie as being a different age based on her ability, most likely. Is that going to be the case here? Or when we are in the 25 years section and Ginny is basically yelling at Kuma about, hey, don't you love me? Like, marry me.
And may I add, marry me?
If they did get married at that point, if they did decide to have a child, if Pastor Kuma decided he wanted to take that photo of Jesus Christ on his mantle and have it face the wall for a little bit, and then 9 months later they give birth to Bonnie, it would fit in with the SBS. Ginny's yelling, hey, marry me, blah, 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 don't you love me? They have a child. Now, we never see that child. Who is watching the child? Who is taking care of them? I don't have an answer for that. Why is Oda hiding Bonnie? I don't have an answer for that. We are Team Bonnie as a clone, but there are so many layers to Bonnie being a clone, especially given a chapter like this as well, that really sort of muddies all of this. Now, the way that I want this to go, not necessarily the way that it will go based on everything in 1098, but I do want Bonnie to have been a real girl. I wanted her to be the daughter of Kuma and Ginny, who dies. Kuma takes her memories and her body probably and asks Vegapunk to do what he did with Stussy and create a clone, which he then puts selective memories into the new version of his daughter. And then to protect his daughter, he becomes a machine, a warlord, a government dog, a puppet for the government, right? Just to keep his daughter alive, even if it isn't really his daughter. Bonnie goes into the memories, finds out the truth. A lot of people believe that Bonnie is actually a clone of Ginny. Now, there are some interesting elements of that, albeit a little bit weird, especially after, the wholesome love story that you're getting here and everything, and then he raises her as his daughter. That gets a little weird. There's a way to do it. There's a fine line where it doesn't become creepy, but, it's a balancing act. She goes into the memories and then realizes, oh, wait, I'm not Bonnie, I'm Ginny, and then gets all of Ginny's memories. Then she's emboldened a little more when she's seeing Saturn, right? Because Ginny did know who Saturn was. And then it's not actually Kuma's memories at all that she went into, but it was Ginny's the entire time. There are ways to make it work. There are ways to make it make sense, and it's still an eye-popping, oh, wow moment for a lot of fans that aren't watching YouTube videos and getting, spoiled on these things by having these conversations early. The worst version that I heard that I don't think there is any way to make work is that Bonnie is literally Ginny. Not a clone at all, but that Ginny had her memories wiped completely and then with the age thought she was a child. There's no way to make that one not weird.
You seem a little old for that.
Babysit me.
One interesting thing that was brought up in the Discord by Soge King was, what if Bonnie's pink hair is a result of being a clone? Vegapunk looks at Bonnie as a failed clone, just like he does with Momo's Devil Fruit, right? Because it became pink. Now that's something that we had been saying for years as far as Momo's fruit. I would say it as a joke. Oh, this fruit's just a failure because it's pink, right? But going on that, Sogeking suggested that Bonnie's pink hair would be indicative of this as well, which would be interesting if we eventually found out that Ginny does not have pink hair, right? She's got blonde hair, she's got blue hair, she's got green hair, something, whatever. So Bonnie is a failure because she's not a perfect clone. Stussy is listed as the first perfect clone, but she would have also been made prior to Bonnie, so that doesn't mean that there weren't other successful clones after it. I don't want a bunch of clones, but I am okay with Bonnie being one. I don't need a million clones. I say this all the time, and I still get people that are like, why do we need a bunch of clones? I'm not saying I want a billion clones. I just want Bonnie to be one because I think there's story there. Oda is laying crumbs in this chapter to have people veering the wrong way, because he's laying all of these traps because he wants a lot of people to think that Ginny could actually be Luffy's mom. Going as far as to introducing her by eating a drumstick of meat. She's got one in her panel when she's 37 years old at the end of this chapter, and then she is listed as the previous commander of the East Blue for the Revolutionary Army, the predecessor to Bello Betty. Putting her in the East Blue connects her to Luffy. Does it go deeper than that, or is it a red herring? I'm hoping that it is a red herring. I do like Ginny enough to be Luffy's mom. It's interesting, but there's too much setup and there's too much stuff with all of this Bonnie business that it's just gotta be that. But if Kuma were to take an act of celibacy and all of that, there's ways for Oda to make it work, but I don't want it. What island are they at? I personally believe that this certain island could very well be Koja, the island from Sanji's second flashback, the island that Vinsmoke Judge and Germa 66 attack when they get to the East Blue, the island where Sanji finds the orbit. This would be canonically a year before Judge comes, right? But we still need to figure out how Vegapunk ties into this flashback, and we know that Judge is connected to Vegapunk, right? But what if their vendetta goes so deep that he left the North Blue and took his forces to attack Vegapunk? Could it be that serious? Could it be that crazy? Is this how we tie into the cloning technology anyway, because Vegapunk is actually operating out of the East Blue at this particular time? Maybe. And another reason why, I talk about Koja and this all tying together is because Judge also has clones, right? So let's just tie everything together, lineage factor, cloning, all of it, full circle. And Koja is named after the Koja Monastery in Romania, tying into all of the religious themes. Could the silhouette at the end of the chapter not actually be a Kainu, but it's Kizaru to tie into the Vegapunk stuff and to tie into the present day of it all? Potentially, right? I'm still leaning a Kainu. Kainu's number one. We could still see Smoker in this. I'm not saying that he is the silhouette at the end, but he could be like in Sakazuki's forces or something as a young 21, 22-year-old. Could you imagine he was Sakazuki's petty officer or something? He was Sakazuki's Tashigi, and he's just got that shaved head look from the Film Z color spread that was done. Why I say Smoker also, not only because this is the East Blue, but primarily because 1098 will be 1,000 chapters from Smoker's Oda box. We were introduced to Smoker in chapter 97. If Oda wants to put Smoker into this flashback 1,000 chapters afterwards, it would be here. This would be it. Let's see what happens. Could it be Garp? Having Garp involved is interesting and could bring it full circle to God Valley eventually, but I think we really need to build up Sakazuki as a villain. So Sakazuki's my top choice. I do expect in 1098 to not only see Sakazuki, but also Vegapunk and a younger Bonnie. Theoretically, if Bonnie was born 24 years ago, she would be 9 or 10 here, which would put her around the same age as Kuma at the beginning of the flashback during God Valley. So both of these defining moments in their lives would be happening at the same age. Does that mean that Kuma and Bonnie play a role in everything that could potentially be happening on Koja or whatever island this is? Not necessarily. I think that something else is going to be happening at Sorbet. The beginning of this flashback showed what happened to Clap and Kuma's mom because of having Buccaneer blood. If Kuma did, in secret, have a child with Ginny and continued that Buccaneer bloodline, could we see a reprise of that, where now the government shows up to Sorbet to attack Kuma, to attack Bonnie, to attack the people of Sorbet because he is a Buccaneer and he has a Buccaneer child? Could this be where Bonnie dies in front of Kuma, leading him to seek out Vegapunk? When Dragon and Ivankov show up to Sorbet, it's almost implied that they free the land of their particular king. Are we going to see Kuma get coronated, or has he just been the king of the south this whole time? Kind of like the line in the sand. North Sorbet has a king, South Sorbet has a king, and that king is Kuma. That may be the case, right? When Kuma arrives in the second to last page and he's back at Sorbet, right, 14 years ago, is he there to see Bonnie? We see all of the old people cheering that Kuma's back, but he's saying that he's going to return to the island every so often. For him to go back to Sorbet signals to me that Bonnie really does have to be a real girl and had to have been born at some particular time. And Oda's trying to hide that and keep her in hiding just as she's being hid from the government and everything like that. When does he get his name, the Tyrant? We need to see the blossoming relationship between Kuma and Vegapunk. We need to see Kuma become a warlord. We need to see him make the decision to give up his life, his mind, his freedom for the government, and get clarification to exactly why. I still believe it is seated in protecting Bonnie. How whatever the reasoning is, it's built into that. Then we'll come back out of this flashback as Kuma will arrive on Egghead. He will fight Saturn. He will probably throw all of his collective pain at Saturn, hopefully killing Saturn. Maybe he'll take the pain from Luffy, have a moment with Bonnie. Maybe he'll get a little bit of his memories back. Hopefully he sees an image of Nika right before he dies. Give him a little taste of hope, Oda. Don't let him go out praying to Nika and then never sees that Nika has returned. And there's a little bit of geography hurdle, but hopefully we get Dragon in 1100 in the main story, arriving with Ivankov and Sabo, whole Revolutionary Army, to help Luffy get away from these 100 battleships that are outside of Egghead. There's too many Revolutionary Army ties, especially with Vegapunk, and if it doesn't happen in Egghead, then the Revolutionary Army needs to be involved in whatever the next arc is, if it ends up being Elbaf. Plus, the plot demands Sabo, Vivi, and Luffy in a room. So that is coming up soon. Some fun facts from the One Piece timeline that I doubt will play any role into this, but these are things that happened 14 years ago in the same area of the flashback that we're in now. Virgo has just joined the Marines. He could be involved if the Marines get involved, but I also doubt it. Pedro has left Zoe and just started the Nox Pirates. Law joins Dofi. And the Fisher Tiger incident at Marijoa also happens during this timeline. Will it correlate? Will it all happen if we're sticking in this 14 years ago time? I mean, Oda could. That's what it's there for, but I think this will be a separate incident. All in all, that's going to wrap things up for this week. Very much expecting Sakazuki and Vegapunk, hopefully Smoker, next week. Shout out to everybody that supports the channel. You're so very appreciated. All right. Love our community. I will see everybody for 1098 this Sunday. We do not have a break, so Oda is going to leave us on some tragedy. Believe me, the next chapter is not going to be as wholesome as this one. All right, guys. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Feeling the vibe.
I've been swimming deep, deep. Savage.